Michigan. This is Grand Tap Media Business TV. My name is Pamela Keim, your host. We are in the studio of WKTV today, and the spirit of our show is to introduce West Michigan to all the businesses, nonprofit individuals that can help us thrive in our lives. We have a very special guest for you today, and I just went through organizing my home with a professional organizer, and I realized how it changed my husband and me, how we go through our home and how calm we more feel when we go into these rooms that have been organized. And I've always wanted to have a professional organizer on the show because I realize that sometimes when you live in a cluttered life at home, you live a cluttered life at work and when you're getting from A to B. So I want to introduce on the show Kate Wert, the Moxie Life organizing business that she has, and she's going to come out on the show and she's going to talk about how it is important to get organized and how that will change your life. So I want to welcome you to the show, Kate. It's been a morning.
No worries. I get it. Thanks for
right.
having me.
All right. I know we connected through a friend that works for you as a subcontractor, and she organized my home over the holidays, a certain room, my basement, which I'm in a second marriage now, so I had his, hers, and ours, and it's been just this dread going down there finding things. And so I finally hired her to come in, and I can't believe how well I feel when I walk down there to get my stuff. So I want to share how you got into this business, because I know you were in the social worker in the past, and what you've seen, what happens when people start organizing their life and their home.
Yeah, definitely. And I do just want to give a little backstory. So I have my master's prepared clinical license, and I worked in some high demand fields as a single parent. I'm also a single parent working in children's foster care. I also worked in hospice. I knew that those fields weren't necessarily my end game, and they weren't manageable for me. It was really, I loved my time in foster care, but it was a very high stress job, low pay. I got by with the support of everybody that I worked with. They were amazing, but I knew I needed something different for my family. And coming out of that, I knew coming out of working in foster care is like, you can do anything, and I had to carry that with me. It's like, you got to push yourself, Kate. You can do anything for you, for your family. So I had met actually Susie Marsh of Susie's Organization Solutions.
Okay.
She actually works for me now, but we had met at a conference when I was working in hospice, and I saved her business card, and I was like, this is something I didn't know it was a thing in West Michigan. Okay, so this is probably like 6, 7, 8 years ago. I'm really bad with time, but all I knew was the television show Hoarders. So I talked to her. I got laid off, and I reached out, and I just said, I don't know what my next steps are, but my heart's telling me this is where I need to be. So
being a social worker, let's talk about that. You go into the homes, you're assessing things like that some of you do, and you were even foster. Did you say you were handling foster situations, or what was it that you? Right. Talk about did that kind of prompt you to see what a mess that some people's lives were in the home?
And you do, yeah. That's a huge thing, as you see, within foster care, working with a lot of single parents, multiple kids, and just seeing like the chaos. We all have a little bit of chaos, especially if you bring kids into the mix, but it was really looking at, okay, we have these global concerns or problems in the home, and really breaking it down to work with the parents as far as, how can we help? What is the step one? What's the step two? How can we support them? How can we empower them? And a lot of those skills, from foster care, and I should say too, the paperwork, the paperwork, the phone calls, the having too much, so much on your plate, but just the skills that were needed to succeed in that job was you had to learn to prioritize, and you had to learn to have good boundaries. So a lot of that transferred into, the field that I'm working in now.
Did you have to, with foster care too, in those situations, I always find that you can't just leave it at the door. You can't shut the door, you put your files. Those are real people in really serious situations. Some of them are. And you go home with it. Is that correct when you're dealing with that?
Absolutely. And I will say, like I said, we had a great supportive staff, and that's what kept you going. That they knew the compassion fatigue, secondary trauma was part of the work that you did and really supported you through that. I will say, one thing, I believe in rituals and, and routines. And one thing that I worked on is, if I had a tough client or a rough day, was I actually verbally said before I walked in my house, you know, you're leaving, fill in the blank here. You're not allowed in, and just that ritual itself, our brains do something,
Wow.
where it
Okay.
helped me to really separate because it's so hard to shut it down. It is.
Well, we know what we're dealing with right now with, and you probably see that too now with COVID. Many people have brought their office into their home. And when we were talking on the phone yesterday, I was mentioning that I have my office everywhere, not in some locations. I'm trying to narrow it down, but I'm still struggling balancing enjoying my home life with my work life. And
Right.
somehow your work life just takes over. And then some parents are dealing with homeschooling with doing their kids with virtual, so you have that chaos coming in on your home. Are you getting more? I mean, can you see where these people might be like overwhelmed because they can't organize, they can't compartmentalize their life right now?
Absolutely. And that was one thing, with COVID as a business owner, I was so scared. I was like, I'm a small, we're a women run independently owned business.
Right.
Was okay, are people going to have more time to work on these, to work on these tasks in the home, which is great. What's that going to look like? Are people going to have money to invest in us? And I did see, my consensus after talking to people and the influx of inquiries was they're feeling stuck in their space and they don't know how to create those boundaries and figure out how do I manage all these hats I'm wearing now with working at home, homeschooling, virtual setup,
Yeah.
so, and they're in their homes more. So, like you said, your basement, it's in their faces, there's no avoiding it anymore. You can go to work all day and avoid the home life, but when you have to stare at it all day, there's that increased risk for anxiety, overwhelm, and saying, like, enough is enough. I've got to do something about this and I need some help.
Talk about the little bit when we were on the phone. I was telling you that I no longer, because of the chaos that I had, I kept walking through and dealing with that. And it does give you a dread looking at the mess, knowing that you need to get to this. Even if it's just you're putting all your mail, right? Everybody has that situation. I shared with you on the phone that I no longer enjoyed even cooking anymore because I just felt like everywhere I went, it needed to be taken care of. So share, now that you're seeing this and everybody, talk about a little bit of the emotional aspects when you're living in with a cluttered situation, a home.
Well, Pamela, it really depends on how much time you have here because it's a very multi-layered things, but I do want to just point out some things that seem to be pretty universal with the clients that we work with. One thing is that, I want to tell you one thing, the photos are false. So you're going to go on Instagram, you're going to see those photos, you're going to see, Pinterest, and, that's not real life for most people. And maybe some, and we can do that. We can make the Pinterest photos, but I tell people, I'm like, it's got to be something, that's manageable. When people reach out to us, we get some that are just that they're at that point where they're overwhelmed, they're ashamed, they don't want company over. I know now with COVID, obviously that's different, but they're not able to do the things that they enjoy anymore because they're stressing about their stuff. They can't relax in their environment, and then there's this tremendous guilt because they're not doing anything about it.
And they don't know where to start. See, I was like, where
Don't
do
know
I
where to
even
start.
start? Correct?
Right. So, and that's something too, when we work, with clients is they'll have this whole global view. And if I go into a home, I can be there for 2 hours and them telling me everything that's wrong in their home that's not working for them. And we really got to be, I'm like, well, let's hyper focus on 2 to 3 things. What are your top priorities? What's going to be easiest for you to sort through? What's, if it's something where you have a home office that's bugging you the most, that's really important. Let's focus on that. So, really trying to break down that master project into small, achievable tasks. That's definitely huge. But, one huge thing as I talk about is managing mindset. This is the thing is when we go in and we're like, oh, I'm going to organize my home. That's huge. That's overwhelming for our brains.
Right.
And, are you getting organized because you think you should? Because, and I call it shooting on yourself. Like I should be like this person. I should be like my mom, or, Is it because it's causing you stress and anxiety? Is it because you want to spend more time with your kids? Is it because I can't bake anymore? I want to bake more. I've had people that are like, I love reading, but my books, I got all these books and I'm hoarding books and I don't want to read because I can't relax. I can't even read in my bed, without thinking about stuff. So one thing I tell clients, and we have to be very, our services are very non-judgmental, client-centered, but the reality is, and any organizer will tell you, that our stuff equals our time, it equals our energy, and it can be, we can lose money over it if we're replacing items or we've got items misplaced and we have to replace them. But our stuff is something we have to manage. We've got to clean it. We've got to find a place for it, So start thinking about it by looking at minimizing what's in your life and that stuff, streamlining, and how much time you're going to save. That's a huge thing. And what's a better use of your time? So what's your time worth? Do you want to spend your time managing the stuff?
Right.
Or would that time better be spent than starting a hobby? You know what I mean? As a single parent, I'm like, yeah, I can have all the nice things, but it'd be nice if I had some hobbies.
Well, exactly. You came in and you didn't have this dread that you're just always feeling guilty, as the emotional aspect of that. Now, I know that there's the hoarders and then it's the clutter. Can you kind of that make people feel like you're not a hoarder? We see those images on TV and we're like horrified, right? But then yet you can go into a home and see a lot of stuff, that beautiful things, that tables and stuff like that, just full of stuff that they can't even enjoy maybe a family meal because they've got half their table full of stuff, right?
And that's, I do a lot of presentations to the professional community, nurses, social workers, other helping professionals, and just, I guess the community at large of like, the term hoarding is highly overused. Like, I've had that where, people, you're a hoarder, my wife's a hoarder, I'm a hoarder. And it's like, hoarding is its actual own clinical disorder. And we do hoarding work. We are partners with the Grand Rapids Area Hoarding Task Force. So I've done my research on this. I know a lot. I'm, one of the people in West Michigan that they'll contact if, they need help with a family member that hoards, or I'm hoarding and I need help. So, the difference is with hoarding is that you've got to look at the safety concerns. So at that point, the clutters become where they can't complete their activities of daily living anymore. Maybe they can't shower, they can't sleep in their bed, they can't use their kitchen, they don't have running water because they can't bring someone in to help with plumbing. So more of those like safety concerns and those activities of daily living. And I could go into depth and give you a whole nother segment on that.
But to put on the average person, though, I would be the average person pretty much. I'm not as, I know I've been into some other homes that are a little bit more cluttered, but they have more family members. I only had my husband and I there, but we still dealt with the guilt of not getting it done and not knowing where to start, because my husband was concerned that I was going to put something somewhere. And even when people say that, right, I know where everything is. But do they know where everything is? Isn't that kind of a misconception?
It can and it can't be. I've worked with, some people are very visual, and that's something we have to keep in mind too, is that some people like to have things where they can see them. They don't want them tucked away in baskets or in a file cabinet. There's maybe a fear that they're going to forget about them. And maybe that's true. Our brains all work differently. That's where we have to really break it down and also take into account different, cognitive or mental health implications, or, because we've worked with people with traumatic brain injuries, with, Alzheimer's, dementia, they're losing their vision, so there's a whole lot of layers to that. I will say, and, as far as that visual piece goes, is it's a balance between, okay, you don't want your home to look cluttered, but you want everything at your fingertips, and so you've got to find a balance of what is really high priority to be out there at your fingertips, and what can be, filed away for reference, or, and again, what do you really need versus what you want,
The clutter, I was going to say, just unorganized. I feel like if you don't teach children how to organize a home, which it takes a lot of work. It's you got to really. Everybody thinks it's easy, but as you do it, it becomes much easier to organize. Teaching children how to organize it. And I don't know if you ever heard of Jordan Peterson, but he talks about fixing, he does 12 rules for life, but one of the things he talks about with people is like organize your room first. Organize your bedroom, because make your bed. Start just by making your bed. Then do work from there. Just little steps. By organizing, he's proven, by organizing just your room, your bedroom, and getting that in an orderly manner, you can start organizing other things, and then it becomes part of your life.
Exactly. And that's a big part is with our services is coaching on some of those like micro habits like you're talking about. So we're there to kind of do like, okay, we're going to do a push and get this manageable for you. That's the goal. Let's get it manageable. And let's teach you some micro habits along the way. And I'm glad you brought up kids, because that's a struggle. I mean, it's always going to be a struggle with kids. We need constant reinforcement. And, when we work in households, there's that diffusion of responsibility. If the parents or, aren't expecting kids to tidy and maybe they're not tidying, it's easy to get mad at one another, upset with one another, but it's like, hey, we need to set an example and we have to reinforce this constantly. I mean, how many times have I told my son, your laundry basket's right there. I don't understand. How come your socks didn't make it in? It's your laundry, you know what I mean? And it's the same. And I see it with adults too. It's little micro habits. A big thing, I think, and a lot of organizers teach this, and especially Marie Kondo, is a sense of responsibility for your stuff. Like really, taking care of it. And, that's something we have to work towards, as adults and as children. It's like, hey, if you're not going to take care of your stuff, then what are we going to do with it? I also want to make note, I know I've worked with parents and they're like, and no judgment, but they're like, well, I went through and I just got rid of their stuff. I just went, I don't want them here. And I'm like, but we're not teaching them anything, because they're going to cohabitate. They're going to have a roommate. They're going to have a spouse or partner, whatever it may be. And then that becomes their problem. You know what I mean? Because we haven't given them the skills of, hey, you do have to declutter. You have to evaluate your items. Not everything's equal. You've got to take care of your belongings and really have more of a communal, effort towards it.
Well, one thing I did, I had a misconception about, it was going to cost me so much money to get organized, and then it was going to cost me to buy all of this equipment. So share a little bit how people realize it. You don't have to go out and spend lots of like shelving. I mean, that does help, but I didn't have to do a lot of that, because Kathy, who I hired, she came in and she turned one of our bedrooms into a walk-in closet. I didn't have any children. We don't have children at home anymore. So I turned it, and it was just like moving my stuff, and where it was like all lined up on the wall. So share a little bit about the misconceptions and what people discover when they get done using an organizer. Hey, this was worth every penny. That's what I felt like. So.
Absolutely. So, and okay, I'm going to tell you, the organizing products, that's the fun part, and I'll be honest, it's a fun part of my job when a client's like, hey, I want you to go to Container Store, or IKEA, or this or that, and pick out some products. I mean, the hard part is,
But you guys know where all the good products are in the deals, because Kathy's like, you can go here, it only costs you this much. So some of the things I did buy, if she wanted to put things in compartments, she's like, you can get it here. So I knew exactly where to go instead of trying to find it. Do you understand?
Right. Where you don't have to do that research, because there's a million options out there, and we've tried them. And I tell people, this is, I like that brand. I like that. But what you had talked about was that, any good organizer will tell you to declutter first. So we'll do that. We'll look at decluttering and grouping your like items together so you can really take inventory, as well as looking at your space, looking at your space as a whole, and where, like you said, where can we zone out a space for my, master closet or whatever it may be. Maybe it doesn't make sense where it is. So we do quite a bit of zoning and trying to, optimize your space. And as far as, products go, it's like this, we'll usually find people already have the products, you know what I mean? Because that's the fun part. It's like, okay, I'm going to get organized. I'm going to buy this. So try to utilize existing items, and then towards the end, looking at, or working in that space, what might benefit for you. And
well, the home represents the woman. We haven't gotten away from that, but that is true.
I'm glad we can talk openly about that, because that's the thing I have to say is, especially as a single parent, is I can't do it all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, ask my son what he had for dinner last night, cheeseburger, French fries, so, I'm running a business, you gotta, don't discount the positives and everything you're doing right. But, when I talk to people that are wondering, are toying with the idea of hiring an organizer, is that, think about it like a plumber, or if you needed home repairs, you know what I mean? There, you would jump right on that. If it's something like your furnace goes out and it stops, or you don't have heat, things of that nature, your
Yeah.
water's not working well, or so really start to look at it as like that's equal. If your home's not working for you, it needs to work for you. So
Yeah.
it's something to invest in and say, that's the thing. This is a thing, not a thankless job. It's we get thanks, thank you so much. And I'm honest with people. I'm like, yeah, our services may seem costly, but really, if you go to big cities, we're a lot more, bigger cities, but we want our services to be affordable and accessible to people, but we're worth it.
Well,
And,
I received mine as a gift for Christmas, and I was so thankful. But you go in. So how does the process work? You go in and you just kind of figure out what it's going to take to get it organized. You guys see, like Kathy saw things I didn't see, where I could hang up. You know what I mean? I wasn't using my
right.
space correctly that I could have done. And so share a little bit. And she gave me a budget about what it. I mean, you guys can do all that before you. What's your share
We
with that?
can. And so, what we tell people sometimes, when we offer, people want estimates. And so we can give some estimates on per space and how much time it would take. I always let clients know too, it's also very much so, we rely heavily on you to make decisions on items and be able to be accessible for that. But, when we're going in, we've got all eyes on the space. It's like I'm zoning in on this and that. And hey, tell me about the paper stacks over there. What's going on with those? Tell me about, oh, I saw an old computer, some old electronics stored in your basement. Tell me about those. Are those, do you use those? What are we holding on to them for? Do you need them? And
Yeah.
how can, let's figure out an escape route if you don't need them. Okay, see, your office is in your bedroom. And I'm glad you brought that up, because the bedroom is a sacred space. I'm a firm believer in that you need a place to rest. But, let's look at relocating if you have your home office in your bedroom, or if it's coming there. Okay, tell me more about that. What's your process? Talk me through it. Because the work we do multifaceted. One, we're looking at what items are no longer wanted or needed in the home so we can make more space. Where would they be better situated? And let's get a system set up for, some different routines or habits to, maintain once we walk away. And I will say that some clients, especially women, women business owners, women that, have kids, do all the things, they hire us to come in like once a month just to maintain. Like, I can't do all the things. It's just like having a house cleaner come in, or, something like that, where, I just need somebody, I need to pick me up.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's so multifaceted, but it's really, we want to, the process though, when we work with people, is very intimate. We're going to see all your stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've been told, you know more about me than my therapist, you know more about me than my doctor, because we see your paperwork, you're allowing us, and we're a guest in your home, and you're just opening up your whole
Yeah.
history to us.
Yeah,
So,
Kathy saw a lot of me. I didn't. It didn't bother. After a while, I just told my husband I don't care, because he was always worried about, let's not have, like you said, you just don't want people to go in certain parts of your rooms of your house. And I just said
right.
it needs to get done, and he gave it to me a gift. You can. A good idea is to give this to maybe a family member or a friend that maybe you're able to do that with the means, and say, how would you like to have an organizer come in and do one room? Maybe it's a baby's room, and it's, how those seasons change and you have clothes everywhere, and things like that, toys. You just want to get,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
I mean, there's different approaches there, Pamela. And I know when we're working in a space, is we always bring in boxes. We bring in a garbage bag. We bring in, white garbage bags for linen donations or textiles. And we're staging everything right there close to us as possible, if we can fit it in the space, depending. But
Yeah.
sometimes we'll do like a rough sort. So there might be a keep box, a donate box. It might be relocate is another one. When people are working in spaces, they'll go like this, like, well, this needs to go to the basement, and then walk away, and that's not a good use of time. And then they get distracted in the basement. So relocate to other parts of the home, and at end of session, find a spot for that. So it is, a process of sorting the belongings. If you have an organizer there, will branch out, those categories. So if it's like I really need to take inventory of these items before I make decisions, it's like,
Right.
all right, let's get the craft supplies together, let's get the office supplies together, let's get the clothes together, let's get it, and then bring it to a more manageable state where you can really focus on those items for that sort.
Right, so okay, so they would call you, right? And then you would be able to set up an appointment. And are you got openings anytime soon, or are you been pretty big?
Oh no, I mean, like I said, we've got a team right now, so that's something is when people call, they're going to talk to me. We're going to see who's the best fit organizer for you, who's available. We do have openings and we do get cancellations, so we can get in sooner. We just always ask for a little bit of grace. So sometimes we get those time sensitive jobs where I'm moving in a week and I need everything packed. So it's happened many times. So the great thing is we're able to craft a team or match you with someone sooner than later to get you in. But I always like to have that initial phone call, get to know them a little better, ask for some photos, ask them what their top priorities are. So there's definitely a preliminary process before we come into the home.
Well, I know that you work with a lot of subcontractors. You work with area agents on aging. We just had that common thing because I used to work with them, helping people, the aging, especially if they're moving into a nursing home or they just need some help on that. Before we wrap this up, we're down to about 4 minutes. Could you share a little, I know you say the emotional aspects is really good, but what people think about, misconceptions about an organizer? Can you kind of share that?
Yeah, I think that there's this fear that we're going to come in and tell you to throw everything away. you know? So, and I'll be honest, I'm not a minimalist, but I do think they're onto something. I talked about that, less stuff, more time, more energy. And that we're just going to go in and we're going to take the reins and do it for you, which I tell people, I'm like, we can, but ideally when we're working with clients, we want to be side by side and make it work for you. The other thing people think of organizers is they were like hoarders, it's like the show Hoarders, which is, that's a thing, but I know with all the Marie Kondo and we've got the Home Edit has a TV show, has really normalized organizing. I think people are afraid to ask for help. And I do see that a lot with women, like, I should be doing this. And I'm like, but you're shooting on yourself. And what are all the other things? What are your responsibilities, So it's normalized. I'm telling you, that's why we have a team, is that there's a lot of people out there struggling. There's a lot of people that don't have the time and they need somebody that's non-judgmental, compassionate, ready to hear them out and help them along the way.
Right. You guys don't have the emotional aspect to all of it, so you can walk in. And that's exactly what it is. If you needed a decorator, you'd hire a decorator. You needed a roof redone, you would hire a professional. You need a computer. I hire the Geek Squad to fix my computer. This is the greatest thing that happened to me. It's changed my home and whatever. But before you leave us, can you give us one tip that you would tell everyone, maybe possibly to get started on maybe they're home right now. I'm like, give me just a tip to get started on where to start when you're organizing.
I want you to start small. So that's what, if that's something, start small, start with a junk drawer. Maybe it's old cosmetics going through, the ones that just have a little bit left and you're not ready to throw it away, but you're not really using it. So start with a cupboard, and then, also, this is the thing, is create an achievable goal. So we're like, yeah, I'm going to organize the basement on Saturday. Let's figure out, set aside 30 to 60 minutes. Try it out. Okay. Just try it out and say, set a timer. I'm going to do this for 30 minutes. I'm going to do this for 60 minutes. Set a timer. When that timer goes off, check in with yourself, see where you're at. See, maybe you want to keep pushing. You're like, okay, this is feeling good. I'm doing this. But also give yourself permission to rest and say, you know what? I completed that. Because when we've got this global view, I've got to organize my whole house. It's overwhelming. But if I say, I'm going to organize my junk drawer, I can do that. You know what I mean? Like that.
You can do that in front of the television. You can have your kids help you.
Exactly.
If they know where everything is, and they don't have to ask you, Mom, where is this?
Right. It's a journey. That's what a social worker say. It's a journey. So.
All right. I want to thank Kathy Wert for the Moxie Life Organizing Company. And we wish you all the success, but we will have you back. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Perfect. Thanks, Pamela.
Take care.